Well, good morning and welcome to, the Zen of Eckhart Tolle. I keep changing the name of this talk, my morning talk. It started out with Buddhas in your landfill and looking for everyday Buddhas in our landfill of life, and then it kind of changed to Zen Live and then Zen Fits, and now basically I could say this is the Zen of Eckhart Tolle, because we're looking at for those of you who are just dropping in, we're looking at the quotes of Eckhart Tolle that I have on a little box of cards, and the ones I have now are from The Power of Now, and these quotes are like little cotton balls, and so we kind of like pull them apart, these are compressed wisdom. Like time capsules, or when you get dried, dehydrated food, or it's compressed, you have to add water to it before you can eat it. So you have to add a little Zen to it before you can get a good understanding of what he's saying. So let's take a look at today's quote. The topic of today is the karma cart. Here's what we're going to work with today. Thinking isolates a situation or event and calls it good or bad, as if it had a separate existence. Through excessive reliance on thinking, reality becomes fragmented. This fragmentation is an illusion, but seems very real when you're caught in it. So let's look at thinking again. There's a lot of my talks and a lot of Tolle's observations are about thinking, because that is where we live. Thinking is what we rely on to get us out of fixes. Thinking is where we spend. If you think about the subjective and objective world, the subjective world is where we think and where we get lost in thought and where we're always imagining something better or always thinking about how we should have acted. Thinking is going to the past or the future. We're told to think about it, and we need to think more about that, and I need more time to think about this. So thinking is kind of like the road we run on, but we don't understand the road. We don't know where it's taking us. It's like a train track. And maybe we should have a Jeep where you can go anywhere. But no, we have to stay on this track of thinking, even though it takes us where we really don't want to go. So we need to look at thinking. Thinking isolates a situation or event and calls it good or bad. Okay. This, there's classical logic. Goes back to Aristotle, and classical logic is basically what our modern civilization is based on. And I've talked about this yesterday. But classical logic is the logic of identity, which says that this marker is one marker. It's one. It's not a marker and a cup. And it can't be a marker and a cup at the same time. Now, MacGyver uses a different, the movie MacGyver, or the TV show, MacGyver uses a different logic than classical logic. Classical logic would say that this cup is a cup, and it's always a cup, and you can't use, and it doesn't, and that's what it is. Its identity is a cup, and that's locked. But suppose you are in a situation where you need a knife or something sharp. Well, you would break the cup and get a sharp piece and use it to get out of a fix. But classical logic says you can't do that because cup is a cup. So you can't even imagine using it for something else. But then MacGyver, who is operating with a different logic, which we're going to look at, says, no, this This could be a knife. So he breaks it and gets a sharp piece and makes a knife. So now the cup is a knife, you see. So this requires a little different kind of thinking than the strict good or bad thinking. So good or bad, that Tolle says, thinking locks us into, is not always, it works for everyday maneuvering. And also good or bad is a value thing, but thinking is not always about value. It's a thinking is a choice of in every situation. Like when my wife says, "Do you want bacon or sausage?" Well, she's asking me to choose. Do I want bacon or sausage? And I'll say either sausage or bacon. Okay, because there's a subtle pleasant feeling about sausage and a little unpleasant feeling about bacon. So I would choose the pleasant, the sausage, and I would not choose. So basically, so good or bad is kind of general. But anyway, the situation is good or bad, or this or that. Okay? This or that. Which one do you want? Well, I want the one. I got to choose the one. So the choice goes to the one. And I say sausage. I choose. That's the law of identity. I choose the one. So now we go ahead and have breakfast. Okay? We've gotten past this Scylla and Charybdis, this either or. Now, life is full of this. All the mythologies are full of this Scylla. And, Odysseus had to pass through the Scylla and Charybdis of the whirlpool and the monster with the snake, the monster that was going to eat him. Pirates of the Caribbean, that big whirlpool. So anyway, the thinking works, and classical logic works in everyday situations where you have to choose this or that. Where we get into problems, when this fails, is that when both this or that are of equal value. Then what do you choose? In other words, if the whole is divided, well, let me draw my okay. So when a situation becomes ambiguous, which means that no matter which one you choose, you lose. In other words, you can't choose because neither choice gives you the one. An ambiguous situation is when you have two whole constructs or realities that are opposite yet mutually dependent. And here we come again to our little Gestalt picture to illustrate this, where you have the old woman and you have the young woman, and each one is a complete construct. And when you see the old woman, you can't see the young woman. And when you see the young woman, you can't see the old woman. And yet, the complete picture includes both. So this is an ambiguous situation. Where is the one? You see, when thinking, classical thinking, is designed to choose the one. So you can't. So it's everything has to be one. Everything can be reduced to one. And the classical logic, classical thinking, is a reductionist thinking where you reduce down to, you get to the one. let there be one, you see. But in a life situation, we often encounter a situation where the one is ambiguous. And you can't choose. Now, what happens when, we have to look at our own experience here, what happens when we can't choose the one? The most common one and is in a romantic situation where you have two people and you have to choose one. Who's Mr. Right? Who's the one? And it could be either two women or two men, you see. Or two career choices. I can go work in this situation or in that situation. And they're both equal value. What do I do? So this is called the horns of the dilemma. Okay? The horns of dilemma is a situation. See, in normal situations, classical logic works because it's either this or that, and they're totally separate, and one has more value than the other, and you go. But in an ambiguous situation, it's kind of like a horseshoe. Now, before in a thinking situation where thinking works, you've got the two poles, a positive or a negative, and they're separate. And that's what Tolle says here. Thinking isolates a situation or event and calls it good and bad, as if it had a separate existence. So you see, you got this, and you got this or that. And so you choose this or that because thinking isolates them and they're totally different, and you can measure each one to value. Well, this has more value than that, or I'm supposed to choose this to be good. I don't want to be bad, so I choose that, you see. But when ambiguity rises, and life is ambiguous, so when a life situation, when life rises, it's kind of like a horseshoe comes out of the event is a polarity. Instead of two opposites, a horseshoe rises up, and both ends are a part of the same one. Both this and that are part of the horseshoe. So you can't choose one and ignore the other to get the complete picture or the one. Now, this is hard to describe. So you can't choose in order to get the one gestalt here. You can't choose and say this is just an old woman and the young woman doesn't exist. Or you can't say the young woman exists, I'll choose the young woman, and the old woman doesn't exist. Because if you notice in these too is that if you choose to perceive the young woman, the old woman will force itself up, and then if you choose just to focus on the old woman, the young woman will appear. So you get an oscillation back and forth. So you can't choose one or the other. So with the classical logic, there must be one. This is like the commandment of God. Let there be one. Let there be no other God before me. Let there be no other choice before me. But that doesn't work in ambiguity, right? So, but this is the commandment. Let there be one. And if you really start to kind of look at this, I mean, all of our situations in life where we are uncertain, where we are waffling, where we feel loss of center, where we feel out of sorts, where we feel anxious, dreadful, anxiety, something's missing, something's wrong, I can't figure out what it is, that can be traced back to the inability to choose the one. Because when there is one, there is certainty, there is stability, you're in your center, you know where you are, you're in control. I'm the one. Reality is one. I'm fixed. Everything is fixed. I know where I am. But as soon as ambiguity comes in, there is uncertainty, unsure, loss of center, looking around for some reference or some help or some tech support or some savior or somebody to come and help stabilize and restore center. So this ambiguity rising, and by the way, in our particular historical time, ambiguity is everywhere. Trump is ambiguous. It's driving people crazy. Ambiguity is on the rise in a transitional period. And we're in a transitional period, so ambiguity is on the rise. And uncertainty and dread and fear and anxiety is on the rise because of this ambiguity, because thinking will not get us out of ambiguity. We need something else. So this thinking, I call when ambiguity rises, or a situation, I called it a karma cart. So the image of the karma cart is that of a roller coaster. So when you go to an amusement park and there's a roller coaster there, and the roller coaster cart pulls up, there is a moment there where you choose to get in it or not. And if you get in it, you can't get off the karma cart until it goes all the way through the loops and comes back and dumps you out. Now, you either come out of the roller coaster either so full of life because you just experienced death, or you come out and throw up. I would usually do the latter. But the point is that the karma, once you get in that cart, you can't get out of it. You can't get out of it anywhere along that. So when a situation arises that, well, let's see how I can connect this up because they may not fit. An ambiguous situation, let's go back to ambiguity. An ambiguous situation is when we can't choose the one because the one is divided into two equal realities, two equal but contradictory pictures or constructs. And if you choose one, you can't choose both at the same time, yet you have to choose one. You see where this fails. And so the situation where we rely on thinking to get out of it creates karma. Now, how does thinking create karma? Okay, so let me go here. So the ambiguous situation arises, and we have to choose one. So we choose one picture, and we eliminate that. So we have chosen this, and we have not chosen that. But this is impossible, because now we have, say, I'm going to choose the young woman because I want to be beautiful, I want to have her, and I don't choose the old hag. So I just repress it, I eliminate it, I shoot it, I devalue it, or I say, I got to get to the one. This is the one, and I choose the young woman. This is the one, and the old woman is produced by the young woman. So the old woman is kind of like secondary or a subset of the young woman. So the young woman is the whole picture, and the young woman is just a side effect or something. It's secondary. But that's not true because they're both equal. So if the karma, and by karma I'm talking about a pattern, Groundhog Day is karma. A Groundhog Day or karma is when you keep repeating the same thing hoping for a different outcome. See, a cycle. Karma. It comes back like the roller coaster. You circle, a vortex, you see. So I create the karmic vortex, or the patterns in my life that keep repeating itself. I know myself, I'm 80 years old, and so I've gone through many karma carts. And a karma cart can last for 10 years, 20 years, sometimes your whole life. It's when you keep marrying the same type of person over and over again. Or you having the same fight with every job you get, you have the same fight with the boss. Or every time you go shopping, you end up coming home pissed off. Or whatever the Groundhog Day is, that is a karma card. And so we're interested in how we create, why do we get into that thing? Why do we get into that roller coaster cart? Is there a moment where we can not get into it? Because once you get in it, you can't get out. And then when you get out and fall on the floor throwing up, you say, I'm never going to go with that person again. Or I vow never to do that again, but you do it. So this karma card is created when we use the logic of thinking and choose the one by not choosing the polar opposite. It's like having a battery. Okay, so you got a battery and it's got a positive and a negative pole. And you say, well, I'm just going to choose the positive pole. I'm going to cut off the negative side. Well, you notice that if you cut off the negative side, that side is still negative. You can't get rid of the negative side. You have to choose both. But that's not logical. Positive and negative are opposite constructs. So you can't have positive, negative. It's positive or negative, you see. So logic thinking says either positive or negative. But the battery is both. But the battery affirms both positive and negative. So we could say the type of thinking we need in order to solve life problems is not the logic of thinking, which is it's either or, choose, but the logic of ambiguity or metaphor, which is I use a lot. But the logic of ambiguity affirms both opposites. So the whole construct is both the old woman and the young woman. Well, so the complete picture, now this is a poor example here, metaphor, but the complete picture would be just the ink blot that is potentially, like when you first see this and you probably just see an ink blot. And then maybe the old woman appears. Oh, there's an old woman, but I can't see the young woman. So now you try and see the old woman. And then you see the young woman, rather. You see I see the young woman. But you can't see both at the same time. So it's one or the other. Wow. So what is the complete picture, the whole? What is the one? See, what is the one here would be the original ink blot that is potentially the young or the old woman. But this is not a good example because it's static. What we're interested in is a dynamic, because life is dynamic. Life is a verb. I mean, it's not a static picture. Life is dynamic. It's unfolding. So when we get in this ambiguous situation where thinking cannot choose one or the other, and we go into a wow, or panic or anxiety or uncertainty, and we're looking for help, looking for a clerk to come help me find something, or I call my wife to tell me what to pick, you see, or I go see a priest or a therapist or a guru, or whatever I do to get out of this lose-lose situation, who do you call? See, when you get into ambiguity, it's lose-lose. No matter what you choose, you're screwed because you can't choose both. You can't get the one. So who do you call, you see? So this creates a need for saviors or tech support. I always feel very satisfied when I solve a computer problem without calling tech support. It used to be the slightest thing. It would be call somebody or call my son, call somebody to come help me get out of it. And they would usually say, well, did you plug it in? Did you plug it in? Something. Oh, I didn't see that. So, these are all very, very everyday things we look at here, but they're very profound. The cotton ball is everywhere, but we need to pull it apart. So this problem that thinking cannot help us with is when we come in these ambiguous situations, which we can call a karma cart, in which we have to choose the one, but neither choice can be chosen, and that throws us into uncertainty and loss of center and self. And we experience that all the time, but we know when we feel centered and we feel sure and at home, and we know when we feel uncertain, self-doubting, fearful, anxious, not sure what's true. All these ambiguous, all this netherland, this in-between world is very familiar, but we just push right through it. But they come back. So then we'll talk about this more, but the way out of ambiguity. Okay, let's get back here. I wish I had more space here. But we're trying to use this picture here as a metaphor for transcending ambiguity. Because when you can't transcend positive and the negative, all right, here's your battery, right? Got a positive side and a negative side. And I'm just going to choose the positive side. I don't want the negative side. So I'm just going to cross that off. Well, even though I chose the positive side, the negative end is still there. But this now, because I do not affirm it, because I do not accept it, now becomes a negative force on me. And this creates the karma cart. When you choose just the positive and do not see that the negative is part of the positive, both equal forces, so you're just going to have good, no bad. I'm just going to choose that, and so I eliminate it, I wipe it off, I cross it off, I don't choose it, I reject it. I say you're an idiot. I say your opinion is stupid. Getting back to Facebook, you see. Facebook is full of these situations. My opinion is positive, your opinion is negative, and I reject it. Okay, so what happens then? This rejected or unchosen, the unchosen becomes a force that makes your choice go in a circle. So you have not eliminated the negative, you have just created a karma cart where you and your unchosen half, you see both, this is the one here, Remember, the battery, this is the positive and the negative. This is the one. The one battery includes the positive and the negative. The one picture, complete picture, includes the old woman and the young woman. But through thinking must choose one or the other in order to get to the one. So it's going to, naturally, I'm going to choose the positive. I'm not going to choose negative or bad. I'm going to choose good. Because I want to be good, and I choose good. A good person chooses good. So I choose the good. Now the bad, or the negative, which was a co-equal in the one, is now not chosen, and now it becomes my own force. It becomes me as an opposition to me. And now I go around and around in this opinion war on Facebook, trying to arrive at the one, but what I did not accept, which was the other guy's opinion, is now causing this vortex of uncertainty and fear and anxiety that cannot be relieved until I can extinguish or exterminate this opposing opinion, so I can be the one. But I cannot be the one because this battery, using that as a metaphor, is both positive and negative, the one, you see. So when you divide the one in an ambiguous situation, you create a karma cart, which is going to move you in time in a vicious circle that will increase until finally violence will break out and you shoot the other guy or defriend him. All right. So that's like shooting on Facebook. You know, I'll defriend you. You know, that excommunication. You're gone. You will never bother me again. You see, so I think that will end the karma cart. But oh no, somebody else will appear, and there'll be another karma cart, and I'll get on it, not seeing the trap, and off we go again. And I gotta befriend all. I gotta take all these guys off my friends. See, not seeing that the one divided into a positive. Looking at Facebook again, this is a good example. You know, there's my opinion, which is positive, and there's your opinion, which is negative. But the one includes both opinions. So how do we get to the one when we have two opposite opinions? The way out of the karma cart, the way out of this, we'll have to end here, is creative. And we get to the creative idea, which includes the positive and the negative, which will be creating a battery that generates energy. See, a battery generates energy because it includes and it affirms the positive and the negative. So you can make stuff with a battery. You can turn on lights. But what we're interested in here is a creative idea. So when we accept the positive and the negative, and we see that I'm in a either-or dilemma that thought will not solve, I accept his opinion, in my opinion, as being both right. But how do I get to the whole? There can only be one, you see, one right. So how do I get to the whole when I've got a positive, a right, and a wrong opinion? Let's say good and bad. Let's say right and wrong. All right? So I'm right, he's wrong. This is so common. We had some friends over here last night. You know, said when he was problem with his own Facebook line, he says, really, people that are wrong, and I really get upset. Well, look at it from the point of view of the battery. The positive is right and the negative is wrong, but it becomes divisive, and it becomes a Ouroboros, a snake eating the tail and kicking the conflict down the road in time. It's dynamic. It won't go away, it keeps coming back. Self-consuming argument, self-consuming opinions. Keep continuing until there is a violent end to it, or you move towards a creative idea. Now, the creative idea is a single idea that includes both the positive and the negative. So the battery would be a metaphor for the creative idea that includes both the good, the right, and the wrong opinion. So when we affirm both the right and the wrong, that affirmation or acceptance does not mean I'm wrong and doesn't mean we're both wrong or both right. You can't have two rights. It means I accept the ambiguity. I don't say, well, you have your right to your opinion and I have my right. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the actual affirmation and acceptance of the other opinion as being as right as my opinion. But see, now that presents a problem because there must be one. Well, there must be one. So the acceptance of both opinions as being equally valid, like I accept the thing that the old woman and the young woman are equal realities, neither of which can exist at the same time, yet they're both affirmed, creates an energy that makes a creative idea rise into consciousness. I see. I see something I did not see before. We may call that understanding. We may call it satori. We may call it eureka. We may call it I love my enemy, as Jesus said. If you love the wrong as you love the right, you are creating a situation or the conditions for love or creativity to rise. So see what we're saying about here? We're trying to create the conditions so the one, there must be one, so the one can rise out of an ambiguous situation where you have two ones. So when you have two ones, positive and negative, right, wrong, or whatever, you have two ones, the old woman and the young woman, and you accept the ambiguity and the not knowing what the one is. You see, that's the point. Being able to rest in the uncertainty or not knowing of which one is the one that I have to choose. If I can just suspend the need for knowing, if I can just suspend the need for being right and being the one, if I can just allow that to be here with curiosity, out of that accepted unity of ambiguity, a single idea will be given birth to, a new idea. It may be an invention. It may be a choice direction, a direction in your life that you never thought you would take. It might be a resolution to an ongoing problem. It might be the restoration of your peace of mind. It might be the renewed energy in your life. So now you want to do something instead of just watching soap operas. Whatever the single idea is, it's going to bring joy and energy and enthusiasm and passion because it restores the one. The single idea that rises out of the ambiguity of the lose-lose situation, that single idea is you as a whole person, as a complete person. You have created yourself as a complete person out of the ambiguity and the civil war of opinions or right and wrong or me and the other or me against the world or whatever the duality is, you see. You create yourself as whole again, as one again. You restore your original unity. You make yourself great again. Make yourself great again, you see. How do you do it? You do it through surrender to your need to be the one and eliminate all opposition. Thank you for dropping in. This talk has informed me. I hope it informed you.